We're back without the PowerPoint being reflected on the wall. Because I have prepared pretty good looking, pretty nice PowerPoint, but then you can only see the PowerPoint here. Okay, anyway, so I'm Dr. Laura from Hong Kong Xi'an University. I've met some of you already. Yeah, thank you very much for being my interviewees before. So I think today I'm going to spend about more than half an hour to talk about cancer and cancer prevention. And if you suspect yourself of having cancer, what are you going to do? Well, this is what I will talk about actually. What can you do if you suspect you might have cancer? And the foreseeable challenges and where you can seek help. Now, my talk will be basically based on my personal experience as a cancer survivor and my research. So on my part, I was diagnosed of cancer in 2015, May 5th, 2015, breast cancer. But by that time, I didn't know that I had cancer. I simply recognized that there's a lump there's a lump here. And then I went for ultrasound. I didn't even do mammogram at that time. I did ultrasound and biopsy. And then it's suspected it might be a cancer. And therefore, I'll have surgery in June. And it was a cancer. So in the next 13 months, that means from June 2015 to July 2016, I had undergone a series of treatment, including chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and what else? Now I'm on my hormone therapy. I have to take hormone pills for 10 years. So it's now my 8th year. So this is all I have, and it's also target therapy. And I have to do 18 target therapy in total, 6 chemotherapy, and 21 radiotherapy, and 10 years hormone therapy. I had too many, I forgot. Okay. Anyway, so but I worked again. Of course, when I was under chemotherapy, I quit. I just applied for sick leave. But then about half an hour later, when I was still doing target therapy, I worked again, but worked not very intensively. Anyways, and it was until now. So I think that nowadays I feel that I'm more or less similar to other people, because sometimes I even forgot I had once upon a time had cancer. So this is my experience. So I think that this is why I like to start my research on cancer and how people cope with cancer, because it is a really huge project. And if you have cancer, I think the only thing you have is what has actually happened to me. Well, many people say, why me, why me? Actually, at least from my experience, it's not the why me thing. There's a lot of people say, if you have cancer, then you might ask, why me? Why do I have cancer? But for myself, I didn't even think of this question. For myself, I thought of, what is the implication for myself? What does it mean to me? Am I going to die? What happened? I didn't even know what happened. And I spent at least 1 month to think about what happened, to figure out what's going on with me. Am I going to die? Shall I quit my job? Well, is my life end? And so on. Not physical life, but my emotion and anything. So in any case, I started my research last year, and because I've been looking at how other minorities people, non-Chinese people, life experience in Hong Kong, and therefore I incorporate this area into cancer. So this is how my research comes from. And for the rest of this presentation, I will talk about, I will share some of my findings as well as my personal experience. So the first question, I actually have 6 questions for you. The first question is, what can you do if you are suspected of having cancer? What can you do? My spontaneous answer is don't panic. don't panic. I think this is most important for everyone. Yes. And then, you missed the PowerPoint here. You must go and check. This is really important because for a lot of people, from my interviewees and from friends I know, a lot of people reject to go for a body check, mammogram or ultrasound because they're afraid that they are proved to have cancer, but that would lead to disaster, I would say. Yeah. The earlier you do the body check, the better. So where are you going to do body check? Well, because for today we are going to talk about cervical cancer and breast cancer. So I will try to give you some information on where you can check. For myself, and actually for some of you I know, we'll go to Breast Cancer Foundation, which is in North Point. I think it's pretty professional, but if you pay the price, it is really expensive, 3,000, 4,000. But I have learned that Fincus has coordinated with the Breast Cancer Foundation once upon a time, and therefore collaborate with them. Yeah. They give it for free. Yeah, free. Yeah, I know that some of you have the breast checking for free. So this is a very good place. But actually, I have prepared a link for you to check out, but I can't show it here anyway. So another good place that you can check is the Health Bureau of Hong Kong, Department of Health in Hong Kong, because they have quite a lot of discount now. This is Breast Cancer Foundation in North Point. They've got breast cancer screening. Now for this one, they have a plan, and if you pay for $310 annual fee, you can pay another $225 for mammogram. So altogether 500 Hong Kong dollars for mammogram. So it is 4 times cheaper than the market price anyway. So this is the Breast Cancer Foundation and the Department of Health are the 2 places that you can approach for checking. And also, if you feel really anxious and worrying, I think you better talk to your friends, because for a lot of people, they keep it to themselves, and that will make it even worse. I'm not saying that it's good to talk to anyone. Talk to somebody you trust. Because sometimes if you talk to people, they don't understand, and they just say something that you find sick. You didn't like their response, and you feel even more worrying. So it's better to talk to someone who you trust and who is truly understanding. So now here is another one. I couldn't show it here. The Family Health Service by Department of Health. They have the breast cancer assessment. So what you have to do is you pay 310 Hong Kong dollars, and then you can assess the risk factors and the risk of having breast cancer. So this is another channel. Okay, so how would you feel if you just diagnosed of cancer? As I mentioned, you feel very worried. You feel uncertain. You feel desperate. You feel despair. You feel like the sky is falling apart. Yes, that is true. But actually, this is not the end of the world, of course. Also, not why me? Sometimes you will think, what happened to me? Just I said at the very beginning, what has actually happened to me? Especially for myself, when I was discovered of having cancer, I was less than 40. So by that time, I had just started my work because I spent a lot of time studying. So I just started my work, and I was less than 40, and I was not married. I didn't have children. So what happened is inside my life suddenly. And the thing is that I didn't even know what happened. What shall I do? That kind of thing. And if you have to find out what are you going to do, you have to spend a lot of time looking up for information. You have to find a lot of time consulting professionals. This is what I did when I was having cancer. But I proved that it is really correct. Talk to people, ask for professional help and opinion. So what are the foreseeable challenges? What would be the challenges if you have cancer? Now, I'm not going to focus on myself, but to the audience, audience. I think that I have thought of if, based on my interviewees' response, if you have cancer, the first thing you worry about is job and money. Job and money, definitely. Am I going to quit my job? Where shall I go? Am I going back to the Philippines, or am I going to stay in Hong Kong? If I stay in Hong Kong, how shall I survive? That kind of question really bothering, and these are the very practical questions. I will talk about that later. And the other challenges is that, shall I keep it to myself or to tell others? I tell you what, this tell or not tell is a really bothering question, because if you tell people, it seems like everyone knows that you have cancer, but actually this is women's cancer. And I believe that you might feel a little bit embarrassing if you tell others. But if you don't tell others, how can you explain to your friends? If your friends say, hey, let's have lunch together, hey, let's have a drink together, then you feel very depressed. You didn't want to go. But how can you tell my friend? No, I won't go. And your friend asks you, why not? Are you going to tell her? Are you going to tell them what happened to you? So this is a really practical and bothering question. Worry about your family members at home. Yes. Am I going to tell my husband? Am I going to tell my children? I tell you what, most of my interviewees did not tell the children. They would tell the husband and parents, but not children. Socially mislocated. People would go out and dance and have drinks, and then you stay at home. So you will ask yourself, what happened to myself? It seems like I'm being put in a prison without the end day. You don't know. You feel very confused. And afraid of going to hospital and dealing with different medical staff. I believe that if you have the experience of going to the public hospital, you will find that it's very chaotic, it's very loud, very noisy, and you didn't know what to do. And even if you talk to the doctors, they might not understand you, or you might not understand what the doctor said. This is a very terrible experience, and sometimes if you ask more questions, the nurse will shout at you. Not even you are non-Chinese, even I myself, I speak Cantonese, the nurse will shout at me as well, because they are too busy, I would say, because they're really busy and they are very annoying, so they shout at you. This is a very horrifying experience. Anyway, so these are the challenges that you will have to face. So I have actually prepared some very common questions that pop up in your mind if you were diagnosed of cancer. For example, how long am I going to survive? Am I going to die? What has happened? And what is chemotherapy? What is it? Actually, what is it? You didn't even know what is it. I tell you what, for a lot of people, a lot of my friends or interviewees, even though they complete their chemotherapy, they didn't know what it is. Because it is too much. It's too technical. It's too much. But anyway, you will survive, despite the fact that it's too tough. Am I still a woman? So remember, if you remove your breast or if you remove your womb, then you will definitely have a question of, am I still a woman? Because at least you can't have baby. Especially for those, if you're age 30 something, you feel bad, cannot have baby. Will my husband leave me? You will think about these practical questions. Yes, that's true, but I would say that don't worry too much, really, no need to think about this. Think about how you are going to cope with the illness physically, more than how shall my husband think about it, how shall my parents and my brothers and sisters think about it. I tell you what, this is not an issue by the end of the day. It is yourself. You have to bother about yourself, you have to take care of yourself. This is the entire issue. And so, based on my research, another question, question 3. Based on my research, what are the major difficulties encountered by migrant worker cancer patients? What are the actual difficulties? I would say the first difficulty is health illiteracy. You didn't know what is cancer. You didn't know what happened. You don't know what it is. And found it very confused following the medical guidelines. The pharmacy gave you a lot of pills, gave you some dose or whatever, you don't know what happened. And also, if you have the experience of going to the public hospital, you will find that it's very confused to find, for example, where is the pharmacy, where is the account office, where is the place that make appointment, and so on. So you find that very, very confused, that kind of things. The lack of the understanding of the purpose and importance of cancer prevention. Now, another problem that you might have, it seems like I'm very negative, I keep talking about the problem. But in any case, after talking about the problem, I will tell you the solutions. Okay. So another problem that you will face is the language barrier. As I mentioned, you go to the hospital and talk to the doctors, they didn't understand what you talk about, and you didn't understand what the doctor talks about. And at this point, it's really important to contact some translator, interpreter. This is really important. Now, another problem that you will face very practically is the consequence of telling my boss. What would be the consequence? What would be the result if I tell my boss? Yes, that is a very tough issue. Some of the bosses are very generous, but whereas some of the bosses are very tough. So what are you going to do if you, but in the first place, when are you going to tell your boss? In the second place, if I tell my boss, how shall I react? How shall I respond to her reaction? Anyway, this is really desperate to a lot of people. The thing is that if you keep working and you receive salary, and you feel very tough, you can't stand physically and emotionally. Because imagine if you have chemotherapy and you feel very tiring, you vomit and you feel very sick. But if you keep working, it is really impossible. But I tell you what some of my interviewees really did. They did it very slowly, and the employer understand what happened to them. And after half a year, and everything is back to normal. So they can stand the very difficult situation. This is the very desirable situation, and they will keep working with the same employer. But not everyone is so lucky when the boss will understand you. And if I don't work, I will have to return to my homeland. The thing is, if you return to your home, you have to pay a huge amount of medication. And it seems like it's almost impossible. Honestly, it's impossible. So you have to think about how to stay in Hong Kong. So this is where thinkers and so on is there. I think this is really important, but it really bothers a lot of people. Even if you stay in Hong Kong and you contact other organizations, where are you going to stay? Now, this is a problem. Are you going to stay with my employer, even though if I don't receive the salary? If the employer allows you to do so, that would be fine. I think that would be also be fine. But you feel very bad about yourself. And then some of them even not quit the job. If you quit the job, you have to go back home. But some of them, some of the employer will say, you better leave my house. I won't terminate the contract, but you leave my house, and then you just survive on your own. At that point, some of my interviewees will stay in the shelter for medication. This is quite often as well. So what shall I do? Where shall I go? This is a big challenge. Very confused and helpless. Will I be able to see my family again? What shall I do? Where shall I leave Hong Kong? When shall I leave Hong Kong? These are the questions you will think about. So these are the problems and challenges. So what I'm going to do is to talk about how are you going to solve the challenges. Okay? I think the basic principle for coping with cancer, I think it's not only you or Chinese or non-Chinese, but for everyone. It is, there are some basic principles, which is don't panic and be calm. Of course, it seems like very nonsense, but that is true. I tell you what, even if you are in a very difficult situation, but if you keep calm, if you don't panic, you will be better in any case. A lot of people make things worse because they are panicked. I better not to do that, I better not to, they are too panicked. And when their situation is not that bad, because of their panic, the situation go worse. So don't get panicked and be calm. And another thing is that don't feel shame and don't victimize yourself. It's nothing shame, it's just chronic illness. It's not shameful. Not shameful, not shameful at all. You have to face it. And you can better tell others from my point of view. If you keep it as a secret, actually I would say that you are penalizing yourself. You are punishing yourself. It seems that you are being a thief, you are some criminals that you don't dare to tell others, but actually it's not your fault. It's just an illness. It's just like cold or flu. But but for cancer, it's a little bit more than flu or cold, and that's it. It's nothing really, really serious, and therefore don't victimize yourself. Don't think I'm very miserable, and don't think why God treat me like this, what happened to me. Don't think too negative, it won't help. Don't stress out, it will screw up things further. Don't compare yourself with others. I think that women, not only women, people, like to compare yourself with others. They are so happy, they have children, they have good life, they have good food. But look at myself, I look so miserable. I think that would be really disastrous. Don't compare with others. You might recognize that for a lot of people, appearing to have good life, but actually it is just on the surface. And you look miserable, but perhaps actually you are not as miserable as you think. So don't victimize yourself. Follow your heart. There's no single way to handle cancer. Follow your gut feeling. If you feel good, you do it. Yeah. Whether you quit your job, whether you go home or whatever, follow your heart. And don't talk to people with hostility. Talk to good people, someone you trust. I tell you what, even though people is not hostile, even though people is with good heart, but sometimes, because when you tell people I have cancer, it seems like it's a very heavy thing. And a lot of people cannot handle the response. And they might respond very weirdly, very strangely, and that might hurt you. It happens quite a lot. So it's better to talk to people with better communication skills, I would say. It will make yourself feeling better. And some practical tips is to seek support from your family. I think it's very important. Based on a lot of interviewees' information, they talk, they WhatsApp their family members, they talk to their parents and so on, and that gives them a lot of support, emotional support. Yeah. And communication online and join the groups. For example, Thinkers, I interviewed a couple of members of Thinkers, and they really make use of the internet, Facebook, WhatsApp group, and it really helps. At least they feel that we are supporting each other. That is really important. Okay, so in terms of health literacy, as I mentioned, everyone don't know what is cancer, except you are a doctor, okay? So when the doctor say you have to do chemotherapy, then it comes to your mind, what is chemotherapy? I'm going to lose my hair. How shall I do? Will I look very thin? Will I look very old after doing chemotherapy? You will have a lot of these questions. You can check the internet for more information. But be careful, if you look up for more information, you might feel scared. So better to have the optimal point. Because for some of my friends, they keep looking for information online, and the more they look up, the more they feel scared, because it seems like it is the end of the day. So don't do anything to make yourself bad. And refer to the social media, internet, talk to the doctor and social workers. I discovered that a lot of people don't know there are something called social workers. Who are social workers? They stay in the public hospitals. So you go to the public hospital for medication, and then after medication, usually the hospital will refer you to a social worker. And they are handling the financial things, finance money. And they will ask you, how do you feel? If you feel bad, they will refer you to a counselor. So this is very useful. They station in the public hospitals. It's better to talk to them. I talk to the social worker. And they are not counselor, but they will say something good to you. Okay. And join the organizations, again, like thinkers and so on. I think that really helps. At least you feel a sense of support. Now, another problem is language barrier. As I mentioned, the doctors don't understand you or you don't understand the doctor. Not because of using English, but because the medical term, I would say. Yeah, the medical term, even though for Cantonese speaker, when they go to the hospital, the doctor and the Cantonese speaker don't understand each other as well if they speak fast. So for English, I don't think you use English as your first language, right? And for the doctor, their first language is not English as well. So imagine two persons speaking foreign language. You cannot really capture the meaning of the conversation. So that needs interpretation services. I have checked before I come here. Actually, you can arrange interpretation services at the hospital. You go to the hospital counter and tell them I need an interpreter, or this is the government website. I cannot show you here now. Initially, I prepared to show you. This is where you can go to the general outpatient registration office, the ward, and so on, and request for an interpreter. Or you can approach an organization called CHEER, C-H-E-E-R. You can call them and say that I'm going to have, for example, if today is Monday, you are going to have an appointment on Wednesday. You call them, I'd like to have an interpreter on Wednesday. They will arrange someone. You wait in the hospital, and the interpreter, which is a volunteer, they will come and help. I think that would be helpful. Now, regarding the solution of telling the boss, there's no solution, honestly. You might keep working, did less work, which is the best situation. Or you stay in the employer's place, no salary, and your friends will help you. This is another very common situation. Another situation is the boss requests you to leave the home, and then you find somewhere to stay. For example, stay in the shelter until you finish your medication. This is also common. And what is less common is quit the job and go home. Perhaps I haven't contacted this time, but this is not very, these are the solution. It's not very, actually it's not the solution, but this is the consequence, I would say. It really depends on how serious your cancer is. If your cancer is serious, it's better not to go home, I think. Because you have to do medication. At least in Hong Kong, you don't have to pay much. But if you go home, you have to pay a lot. You can't really afford it. And then that will be a disaster because by that time, you will wish to come to Hong Kong again, but you can't. That will be really, not only for Filipinos, but for different ethnic groups as well. Yeah, I know an Indian didn't complete his medication, his chemotherapy in Hong Kong, but then the whole family went back to India and they suffered from huge amount of medication fees and they wished to come to Hong Kong, but Hong Kong does not allow him to come back. And then he was very, very despair. So I think that money is always an issue for cancer. Yeah. Yes, a huge issue. Your relationship with your boss, of course, it depends on your relationship with your boss and your family situation. If your husband, your parents really, really, really wish to see you and they cannot come to Hong Kong, so I think to sacrifice for them, you can go home and see them. I think this is also very understanding. Another thing is the role of faith. If you feel confused, if you feel bad, despair, uncertain, Pray. Pray for strength, healing, and coping with life challenges. Pray. Now, this is what some of my interviewees told me. After praying gave me strength, the pain was removed little by little in the heart, not physical, but in the heart.
Yeah.
Feel more positive.